and welcome to Functional Foundation. We're going to learn a series of postures to help us build strength and mobility in our thighs and in our hips. So let's get started. Coming to the top of your mat, we're going to bring our toes together, heels slightly apart, standing in Tadasana. Take your hands by your side, shifting the weight into your heels, tuck your tailbone down, and press the tops of your feet into the mat. Inhale, take your arms all the way up to the ceiling, relaxing your shoulders down and back, and start to bend your knees. Let yourself get as low as possible. And as we start to straighten out our spine, shift the weight into your heels, tuck your tailbone in, and lift the chest up. Once more, try and get low, dropping the hips down. Shift the weight into your heels, tuck your tailbone in, and lift your chest up. Holding here for 5 breaths. Notice how the weight is distributed through all 4 corners of your feet. Visualize the energy in your body pulling inward and up the spine. Breathing in balance and harmony through the left and the right side body. As we take our hands to heart center, shift the weight over into your right foot and let your left leg hover just 1 inch above the mat. Keeping our foot at the same height, try and drop your hip down a little lower, making sure our hips are squared and our chest is up. Hold for 3 more breaths. As we rest our foot back on the mat, inhale, come all the way up, straightening the legs and reaching to the ceiling. Exhaling back into your chair. As we take our hands overhead, shift the weight into your heels, tuck your tailbone in, and lift your chest up. One more time, try and get your hips a little lower, shifting the weight into your heels, tuck your tailbone in, and lift your chest up. As we shift the weight into our left foot this time, take your hands to heart center and let your right foot hover 1 inch above the mat. Without dropping your foot, see if you can drop your hip down a little lower so that the hips are squared. Hold for 3 more breaths. As we bring our feet back down to the mat, coming back into our chair pose, inhale all the way up. Exhale, fold forward. Slowly unroll 1 vertebrae at a time, coming all the way up to stand. As we get to the top of our pose, keep reaching the arms up, and this time bring your left knee with you. Take a moment to notice how your bottom foot feels on the mat, grounding down through the mound of your big toe. Without dropping your knee, see if you can drop your hip a little lower. Feeling how the pelvis squares, tighten your core, lift your chest up, and relax your shoulders down and back, creating space from the shoulder blade to the fingertips. On our next inhale, we're going to lift our knee as high as possible, and as we exhale, press into your heel. Hold 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Bringing our hands to heart center, drop your foot back to the ground, letting it just hover above the mat as we swing all the way through. Imagine your body as a teeter-totter, keeping it in a straight line from your head to your heel. Once you start to feel the stretch in your bottom leg and the hamstring, hold and pause, moving with your breath. Each inhale, reach from your head to your heel, getting long. Each exhale, try and drop your hip down, shifting the weight into the mound of your big toe. Inhale, get long. Exhale, folding a little more, finding that maximum stretch. Hold for 3 breaths. Bringing your foot back down to the mat. Inhale, reach your arms all the way up. And exhale, fold forward. Unroll one vertebra at a time, coming all the way up to stand. As we reach our arms up, let your right knee follow this time. Taking a moment to make sure our knee stays high, but to drop your hip down a little lower, shifting the weight into the mound of the big toe of your foot that's on the ground. Start to visualize a straight line running up the back of your leg, through your spine to the crown of your head. On our next inhale, we're going to lift our knee as high as possible, and as you exhale, press into your heel, holding for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let your legs swing through, just hovering above the mat as we bring our hands to heart center, keeping your body in a straight line from your heel to the crown of your head. As you inhale, think about making space in your body, getting really long. And as you exhale, shift the weight into the mound of your big toe to help you drop your hip down. Hold for 3 more breaths. On your next inhale, come all the way up, taking your hands overhead and bringing both your feet back down to the mat. Exhale, fold. Slowly start to unroll one vertebra at a time, coming all the way up to stand. Now, as you balance, if you start to wobble, it's okay. It's important to embrace your wobbles. It's your body learning and recalibrating. And even if you fall out of the pose, just come back and try again. Standing at the top of your mat, take a moment to notice how your weight feels as you rotate around the soles of your feet, shifting your weight forward into the toes and backwards into the heels. Shift to the left and then the right, slowly making circles to spiral right into center. Keep a slight micro bend in your knees and tuck your tailbone in. This will help take away any tension in your lower back if you tend to stand with the pelvis tilted. We're going to take our left foot back. One nice big step, turning your heel inward so that your foot's on a bit of an angle, coming into Warrior One. You can bring your hands together so that the palms are touching, interlace your fingers, or let them separate. Putting as much energy into your back foot as into your front, try and wrap the back hip forward and drop the front hip down. Inhale, think of lifting the rib cage up. Exhale, think of sinking the hips and lower body down, creating lots of space in our belly. We're going to take 3 breaths here. Inhaling to create space and get long, and exhaling to ground. As we start to pick up our back heel, let your foot wiggle deeper to the back of your mat, letting your stance get long so that we're in a low lunge. Take your hands to heart center. Start to bend and straighten your back knee. As we're moving the back leg, try and keep your front leg stationary along with your hip. Just trying to warm up our quad before we go any deeper into a stretch. Next, we're going to start to straighten out both of our legs, coming into what we call pyramid legs. Start by keeping your back heel lifted and your kneecap lifted as well so your full leg is engaged. If you feel comfortable here, you can try lifting up your front toes. Make sure you're squeezing the thighs inward and pulling the feet towards one another. Hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Don't worry if you wobbled and if you fell out, just keep trying again. We'll take our knee all the way down to the ground, uncurl your toes, and bring your hands to the inside of your foot. Let your back leg get really soft and loose. As you bring your hands to the mat, pull them towards your hips, so it's like we're dragging our back leg across, creating lots of space in the front of our hip flexor. Allowing for your other knee to fall out to the side, so much so that your whole foot actually peels off the mat. As you breathe here, feel the weight of your hips, using the momentum of your body as the force and the gentle pull of gravity to go deeper. Before we come to the other side, let's take this one step deeper. Bringing our foot back onto the mat, curl your back toes under, and lift the knee up. Notice when you lift your knee up, you're trying to keep your hips just as low as they were, but just trying to lift from the knee and the calf. If this feels comfortable, you can even try coming onto your elbows. Press into your hands or press into the forearm. Hold. Notice where your body is connecting with the mat, keeping everything long and engaged for another 3 breaths. As we walk ourselves back up onto our hands, keep walking across the mat all the way to your back foot, letting your hips drop low, turning your toe outward, and peeling your other toes off the ground so they're facing the ceiling. Hold here. As your hips start to release, you can try pressing your heel away and then tractioning it back to find a stretch in your inner groin. Finding a bit more heat to start to engage our muscles, we're just going to sway from side to side, taking your time at the end of each pose to rest and settle and give a moment for your muscles to respond before moving on to the other side. Breathe deeply. As we bring our hands back to the top of our mat, bring your knee down to the ground and step the feet together, finding our cat-cow breath to help sync our body and breath together as one. After taking 3 or 5 breaths, find a neutral spine, curl your toes under, and lift your hips back into downward dog. Let your heels lift up slightly as you bend your knees. Pressing into your hands, try and tilt the sit bones up and give your head a little shake. Keeping your belly as close to your thighs as possible, start to ground your heels once more. If it feels good, you can try lifting all 10 toes off the mat. Feeling equal energy coming from the hands, the hips, and the heels. Looking to the top of your mat, start to walk your feet forward, coming into a forward fold. Slowly unroll one vertebrae at a time, coming all the way up to stand and bringing your hands overhead. Exhale to heart center and step your right foot back. Inhale, reach your arms up. And as you exhale, sink your hips down. Visualize you're lifting the energy from the rib cage up and from the hips and the lower body down to the ground, creating space in our belly. Each time we want to bring our back hip forward and our front hip down, making sure the pelvis is squared. Let's take 3 breaths here. As we start to pick up our back heel, let your foot wiggle a little deeper to the back of your mat as we come into a lower lunge. Take a few pulses in your back knee to help warm the muscle before we go any deeper. Make sure you want to keep the front hip stabilized, grounding down through your front foot. Straightening your back leg all the way out, keep your heel lifted, coming into pyramid legs. Start by straightening both legs, and if you feel comfortable, try lifting up your front toes. Remember, it's important to keep every muscle active, squeezing the thighs inward and pulling the feet towards one another. Fight the wobbles, embrace the wobbles, holding for 3, 2, and 1. Take your foot down to the ground and drop your knee to the mat, uncurling your toes. We're going to take our hands to the inside of our foot, allowing for your back leg to get really soft and loose, feeling as though we're trying to slide it to the top of our mat, using the traction in our hands to pull and engage, creating length in the front of our hip flexor. Naturally, let your knee fall out to the side and let your foot peel off the mat. Feel the heaviness in your hip and use the momentum of the weight of your body and gravity to go deeper. Not putting any pressure, but just surrendering to the pose and breathing. As we bring our hands back down to the mat, let's take this one step deeper. Bringing our foot fully planted, curl your back toe under and lift the knee. Notice that you're trying to keep your hips stationary. It's only the back knee and thigh that's lifting. If this feels comfortable, try coming onto your forearms. Taking a few breaths, notice where your body connects with the mat, finding equal pressure in both your feet and both your arms. Coming back up onto your hands, walk your hands to your back foot and drop to the heel. I'm just going to turn around so that you can see the asana more clearly. Start to sway side to side, just as we did on the other side, either bringing your hands to prayer or using the ground as support. Pressing into your foot to find a lift and drop. Move with your breath and find yourself back in center with straight legs. We're going to walk our heels inward and turn our toes out, trying to find a straight line from our knees to our ankles to our hips. Again, use your hands as support, redistributing the weight of your torso through the arms to help spread your thighs wide. We're going to start to find a bit more strength here as we lift our chest up and bring our hands to prayer. Pulsing down and up. Notice we're pulsing down and up, not up and down. We want to keep getting lower with each pulse we take, making sure we're squeezing our glutes to keep our knees wide and pulsing with our breath for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Hold for as long as you can. Close your eyes. Notice where your feet meet with the ground. And on your next inhale, come all the way up, walking your toes inward. Let your hands catch your hips and fold forward. Taking a moment in our forward fold, release your hands all the way to the ground, letting your shoulders and head feel heavy. Sway the body, circle the hips. We want to try and keep the pressure on the outer edge of our foot, pulling our kneecaps up. Keeping your big toe grounded, try and lift your inner arch as much as possible. We'll take 5 more breaths just to give some time for your back body to release. As you breathe, it's okay for your body to move. Remember, as we inhale, we're creating space. And as we exhale, we're moving into the space. So find that wave-like motion and start to flow with the breath. On your next exhale, step to the top of your mat, bringing your hands down and your knees together onto all fours. So as we sit back on our heels, we're going to extend our right leg out and let your bum come all the way to the mat, making sure that other heel is by your hip. If this is uncomfortable, you can try sitting on a towel or a pillow. Make sure your knees are together and use your hands as support to try and sink your hips down so that they're equal. Already, this might be a really big stretch, but we're going to try and go a little deeper. The same leg that is straight, take that same elbow back. We're slowly going to recline the body. Our goal is to get both of our elbows onto the ground. Using our elbows to help lift our bum up to tuck our tailbone and release. Now this is already a really intense stretch. Just by keeping my glute activated and squeezing and trying to press my knee down, I'm going to find that release in my quad and my hip flexor. If you feel comfortable and want to lie all the way on the ground, that is your final pose and an option if that's accessible to you. Take 3 more breaths, every so often making sure you're engaging the glute and pressing the knee downward. Visualize the muscle we're stretching, see it getting longer, and releasing any tension in the hip flexor. Shifting yourself back over onto that one elbow and coming up to sit. We're just going to switch our legs, releasing the one that is bent and bringing the other one back. Take a moment to make sure your knees are close, trying to sink both our sit bones down, and then walking our hands behind us. The same leg that is straight, you're going to take that elbow down to the ground first. Take a moment to lift your hips, tucking your tailbone, and pressing your knee to the mat. If this feels okay, bring both your elbows down. Checking in periodically to make sure you're lifting your hips, squeezing your glutes, tucking your tailbone, and pressing the knee down. Again, if it feels comfortable and it's accessible, you can lay all the way onto the ground. Walk yourself back up onto your elbows, tilting over to the same one we brought down first, and coming back up to sit. Release both your legs, giving them a little shake. Inhale, reach your arms up, and fold forward. Now in our final pose here, we're just slowing down the body. Wherever you can grab onto your leg is perfectly fine, whether it's behind the knees, behind the calves, or all the way to your toes. Just find what comes first, accessible to you, and just rock back and forth, lifting the chest up and breathing, creating space from our hips to our shoulders. As we inhale, think about getting long and reaching your forehead up. And as we exhale, think about bringing your belly button towards the knees. Using 3 breaths, just like a wave, to go deeper. Inhaling, reaching up and creating space. Inhaling, reaching up to create space. And exhale to fold. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, fold. Last breath. Inhale, lifting from the chest, from the arms and the fingers. And fold forward. And slowly come up. Sitting with one leg, with your shin parallel with the front of your mat. Stack your other calf directly on top so that you're flush from your knee to your foot and your foot to your knee. You should be able to see a triangle in between your legs. Now if your knee is up really high, that's okay. Just place your hand using just the weight of your arm to be any momentum here. Slowly, slowly, your hip will release, but just sit with the discomfort for 5 breaths. To switch our legs, we're just going to bring our top foot down and our bottom foot on top. Making sure our legs are flush with the top of our mat, your heels on top of your knee, and your knees on top of your heel. Looking down so that you can see a triangle right in between your legs. Remember, we're just using the weight of our hand, not putting any extra force. Close your eyes. Watch your breath, holding for 5. Slowly release. Now I notice that your knee might not come all the way down. If you can slide your foot to one side and just squeeze your knee close into your chest towards the sternum, you're going to get the same stretch in the outside of your hip. And as it starts to feel more comfortable, then you can relax your knee down, starting to let the shin come parallel, and making sure throughout each stretch you're staying really straight in your core, pulling your belly button forward. So almost visualizing your pelvis like a bowl, and you want to keep sort of tilting that bowl forward. Find yourself in a seated, comfortable, cross-legged position. Close your eyes and repeat after me. You are the healer and the healed, the lover and the loved, the peacekeeper and the peaceful. The sequence is really great to help you understand how you're using your feet and to make you more aware throughout your daily life as you walk and as you stand. So as you're standing, waiting for whichever in life, if you're talking to someone, or if you're on the phone, or even just doing the dishes or prepping a meal, take a moment to notice where the pressure is on your feet. Notice if it's more on the outside or on the inside, and just close your eyes and see if you can tune in to creating equal pressure on all four corners of the foot. And by simply taking a little bend in the knees, tucking the tailbone, and pressing down through the tops of your feet, it's going to help give you a way more stable foundation so that the rest of your body can find alignment a lot more easier. Thank you for practicing with me. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.